I came home after an operation and discovered my wife dying all alone. Our son was holidaying in Spain and posted, "Finally, I deserve a week away from my pathetic old parents." I snatched my phone and dialed. 5 minutes later. My knee screamed with pain from surgery, but it was nothing compared to the shock that hit me when I found my wife, barely clinging to life. And my son? My only son? He was 1,000 miles away, sipping cocktails, mocking us online. What do you do when your own flesh and blood betrays you so profoundly? Just 3 days after my knee surgery, the key stuck in the lock. Every turn was agony, but finally, the door swung open. Darkness. Silence. It wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of silence that makes your skin prickle, the kind that whispers something is wrong. Helen? My voice sounded too loud in the stillness. Chester? Nothing. I moved through the living room, my cane tapping against the hardwood I'd installed decades ago. The architect in me couldn't help but notice the details: curtains drawn in the afternoon, mail piled up, a faint, stale smell in the air. Helen, honey, I'm home. The bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open, and the smell hit me first. Stale sweat. Something else. Something human and utterly, sickeningly wrong. She was there, in our bed, sheets twisted around her. Her head was turned to the window, where the afternoon light fought a losing battle against heavy drapes. Her lips were dry, cracked. The water pitcher on the nightstand? Bone dry. Tipped over. Helen. Her eyes opened slowly, like it took every ounce of strength she had. Recognition flickered, then a wave of relief, mixed with a heartbreaking shame. Simon, she breathed, barely a whisper. You're back. I crossed the room, forgetting my throbbing knee, forgetting everything but the sight of her. Diminished. Fragile. Wrong. My wife of 42 years, reduced to this. What happened? Where's Chester? 3 days, she whispered, her voice like crumbling leaves. He promised he'd come back. The words hit me like stones dropped into still water. I pulled a chair closer, sat carefully, and took her hand. It felt like paper, so dry, so delicate. When did he leave, Helen? Tuesday. I think Tuesday. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something I wasn't ready to give yet. He said just 2 days, a quick trip. Had to get away for a bit. He'd earned it, he said. Tuesday. I'd gone into surgery Wednesday morning. Today was Friday. The cold, hard math assembled itself in my head with architectural precision. Did he leave you water? He brought the pitcher, filled it. I remember that. She swallowed, a visible struggle. I couldn't. The wheelchair. She trailed off. I looked. The wheelchair sat against the far wall, impossibly distant from the bed. Chester knew his mother couldn't walk unassisted. He'd placed it there anyway. A deliberate act of cruelty. I'm calling for help, I said, pulling out my phone. Don't be angry with the boy. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not then. The dispatcher picked up on the second ring. I gave our address, my voice calm, the one I'd perfected over 40 years of dealing with contractors and clients. My hands stayed steady. The shaking? That would come later. The paramedics arrived with terrifying efficiency. 2 women, asking questions, moving with practiced urgency. How long without fluids? Any medical conditions? Where was her caregiver? My son, I said, watching them check Helen's vitals. He was supposed to be here. They exchanged a look. I knew that look. I'd seen it countless times, the kind that says everything without speaking a word. She could have died. The younger one started, then stopped herself. We need to transport her. I'll follow, I said. After they wheeled her out, the bedroom felt even emptier. I stood there, taking in the scene, the unopened medication bottles, a glass just out of reach, the wheelchair deliberately, maliciously, placed across the room. Evidence. I moved to Chester's room. Clothes strewn, drawers open, hangers empty. His passport, usually in his desk, was gone. I knew because I'd seen it last week when I'd borrowed his printer. My heart sank a little further. Just then, the front door opened. Mrs. Patterson, our next-door neighbor, stood there, casserole in hand. "Simon, you're back. How's the knee? Have you seen Chester?" She blinked, sensing something in my tone. "He left Tuesday morning, early. Big suitcases. Said something about finally getting a break. He looked so happy." Tuesday. "Everything all right?" she asked, uncertain. "Everything's fine," I lied, my voice tight. "Thank you for checking." I took the casserole, closing the door with careful, deliberate control. In the kitchen, I found takeout containers in the trash. Chinese food. One meal. Chester had eaten. Fed himself. Packed his bags. And walked out while his mother slept. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. A lead weight. I pulled it out, opened the browser, navigated to Chester's social media. For a moment, a foolish, desperate part of me hoped it wouldn't load. But it did. The images appeared. Bright sun. Turquoise water. A sweating cocktail glass. And Chester's face, wide and carefree, sunglasses pushed up on his head. The location tag, Barcelona. The post, 2 hours old. Then I saw the caption. "Finally, a week without the pathetic old folks." The words sat there on the screen. Pixels arranged. Proof. Proof of something I'd maybe always known, but never let myself truly see. My son. My only child. The boy I taught to ride a bike, helped through college, who moved back home when his startup folded, who promised to care for his mother while I recovered. Pathetic old folks. Out of habit, I took a screenshot. Evidence. Like I was documenting an architectural plan. Then, very carefully, I set the phone face down on the kitchen table. I didn't trust what my hands might do if I wasn't careful. The house settled around me, quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Somewhere in Spain, Chester was drinking expensive drinks, laughing about his freedom. Here, his mother was in an ambulance, being treated for dehydration that could have killed her. I said the words aloud, testing them. Could have killed her. The architect in me had always understood structures. Load-bearing walls. How a single point of failure could bring everything crashing down. My career was about making sure buildings didn't collapse, that foundations held firm, that people stayed safe. Chester wanted a break from caring. Freedom from obligation. Freedom from the weight of elderly parents who slowed him down. Who reminded him of mortality and responsibility. I set the phone down. Very, very carefully. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Steel cold. The hospital coffee was bitter. Cold. Like the grim clarity that had settled over me. I'd spent the night beside Helen's bed, listening to the rhythmic beeping of machines, watching fluids drip into her arm. The doctor said she'd be fine, dehydrated, exhausted, early bed sores, but fine. Another day, though? And the outcome might have been so different. Might have been. Around 8 a.m., Helen's eyes fluttered open. She looked at me, and I watched recognition, then confusion, then understanding wash over her face. She knew. She knew that I knew. The truth sat between us, heavy and unspoken. "You saw his post," she whispered. I didn't answer right away. What was there to say? He didn't mean it. He's young. Frustrated. She swallowed, and I poured fresh water, holding the cup for her to sip. We're difficult. You almost died, Helen. But I didn't. And he's still our son. Promise me you won't. Rest, I interrupted, squeezing her fragile hand. Please, just rest. She studied my face, searching for something. Whatever she found there made her close her eyes again. I stayed another hour, then drove home. My knee still complained, but the pain felt distant, manageable. Everything felt manageable now, in a way it hadn't just 12 hours ago. I pulled into the driveway. Chester's car was still in the garage. Of course. He'd taken an Uber to the airport. Efficient. The kind of planning that goes into a successful escape. Inside, the house felt different in the daylight. Yesterday, I'd been consumed with finding Helen. Now, I noticed the small details. A coffee mug in the sink. Chester's laptop charger still plugged in. His favorite hoodie draped over a chair. Then I heard the refrigerator close. I turned. A woman stood in my kitchen. Mid-30s, dark hair, holding a yogurt and one of Helen's good silver spoons. She was wearing Chester's old college sweatshirt, like it belonged to her. Oh, she said, not looking particularly surprised. You're back. Helen okay? It took me a moment to place her. Stephanie. Chester's girlfriend. No, fiancée, wasn't it? He'd mentioned her a few times, usually when he needed money for dinner or concert tickets. Why are you in my house? I asked, my voice flat. She raised an eyebrow, spooning yogurt into her mouth with Helen's silver. Chester's house. Technically. Eventually. She laughed, a short, humorless sound. I'm staying in the guest room. He said it was fine. He doesn't own this house yet. She set the yogurt down, leaned against the counter like she'd done it 1,000 times before. But we both know he will. Old people don't live forever. The words hung in the air, a poisonous cloud. I'd spent 40 years negotiating with contractors, dealing with difficult clients, managing conflicts with calm professionalism. That training kicked in now. My voice became smooth. Even. Get out. Make me. Her smile wasn't pleasant. Oh, wait. You can't. Chester lives here. I'm his guest. This is my house. I built it. I designed every corner. And Chester's your only child, heir, sole beneficiary. He told me all about the will. She examined her nails, casual. It's sweet, really. You're leaving everything to family. Things change. Not wills. Not at your age. Too complicated. Too expensive. She picked up the yogurt again. Besides, Chester said you're old school. You'd never cut off your own son. I moved carefully toward the study. Each step measured. You'd be surprised what I can do, I muttered. Where are you going? She called after me. My study. Feel free to let yourself out. Behind me, I heard her laugh again. Heard the refrigerator open and close. Heard her moving through my house like she already owned it. Like she had every right. In the study, I closed the door. Stood there for a moment, just breathing. The safe was behind the bookshelf, hidden in a cavity I'd designed into the wall when I built this place. Only Helen and I knew about it. The combination? Our wedding date. Chester had never bothered to remember it. The safe swung open with a quiet click. Inside, among other documents, was the will. I'd drawn it up 15 years ago. Back when Chester graduated college, back when we still believed he'd make something of himself. Everything split between Helen and Chester. The house going to him when we were both gone. I pulled it out, carried it to the desk, laid it flat under the green-shaded lamp. The paper looked official. Permanent. All those legal words, arranging our lives into neat categories. Sole beneficiary. I left the will on the desk and pulled out my phone. Angela Ray, my attorney for 20 years. Her number, saved under legal, answered on the third ring. Simon, is everything all right? It's late. It was 7:30. Not late for most, but later than I usually called. Angela, I need to change my will. Completely. Remove my son. A beat of silence on the other end. The kind that means someone is recalculating everything they thought they knew. That's significant, Simon. Can this wait until normal business hours? No. Tomorrow morning. First appointment. This is urgent. Another pause. When Angela spoke again, her voice had shifted. That professional, serious legal tone. Understood. 9 a.m. My office. Bring current documents and identification. I'll be there. Simon, she said, and something in her tone made me stop. These kinds of changes, are you certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my study. The will lay on the desk. Stephanie's movements were still audible somewhere in my house. This document, this piece of paper, represented 40 years of building. Of believing that family meant protection, continuity. Chester had been the foundation of that belief. Foundations could be rebuilt. I'd done it before. With buildings that needed saving. You expose the damage, cut away what's rotten, and pour new concrete. By this time tomorrow, that piece of paper would mean nothing. And Chester? He'd finally get his break. A permanent one. Angela Ray's waiting room smelled of leather and old money. I sat, hands clutching a manila envelope, my knee throbbing, a dull, physical reminder of the pain that had put all this into motion. Inside that envelope, the color printouts of Chester's social media, Helen's discharge summary, the old will. Evidence. Angela's office was exactly what I expected, professional, efficient. She gestured me to a chair. Tell me exactly what happened, Simon. Start from when you got home. I laid out the documents, chronologically. Timeline first, medical records second, social media evidence last. The architect in me couldn't help but organize, even as the content churned my stomach. I found my wife dying, I said, my voice steady. My son was in Barcelona, posting vacation photos. Angela picked up the screenshots. Her neutral lawyer's expression, perfected over years of hearing terrible things, barely wavered. These are remarkably callous. That's my son. Or, who he's become. I tapped Helen's hospital summary. She was alone for 3 days. No water, no medication. She could have died. No thanks to Chester. Angela set the papers down. You want him removed from your will? I can do that. But first, let me show you something better. For the next hour, she walked me through Florida law. Simple will changes, she explained, often invite contests after death. Unhappy heirs could tie up estates for years, claiming undue influence, mental incompetence. What's the difference between changing the will and creating this trust? I asked. A will can be contested for years. A trust is immediate, irrevocable in effect. She pulled a legal pad, sketching a simple diagram. You transfer assets now, control them while you're alive, and designate beneficiaries who receive everything automatically upon death. No probate. No contest period. He can't fight what's already done. I took notes, treating it like a construction project. Load-bearing decisions. Structural integrity. Long-term stability. Your total estate, she said, consulting my documents, approximately 1.2 million. You're transferring everything to the MS Foundation. Everything, I confirmed. The house I designed. Every dollar I saved. Chester gets nothing. Angela leaned back, her professional mask cracking just slightly. Simon, I have to ask, is there any chance you'll reconcile? This is permanent in effect, even if legally revocable. He left his mother to die alone, I said, my voice cutting through the quiet office. That's permanent, too. She nodded slowly. Understood. Let's proceed. The document preparation took until late afternoon. Each clause, each asset, each beneficiary. I read every paragraph. Initialed every page with the architectural drafting pen I'd used to sign the final plans for my house 40 years ago. How long will this take? I asked. We can have documents ready today. Notarized tomorrow. Effective immediately. Do it. The next morning, at Milton Willis's notary office, the process was methodical. Signature verification. Witness statements. Official stamps. By late afternoon, the document sat on Angela's desk, complete. Binding. These documents are active now, she said, pulling up her email. Do you want Chester informed, or should we wait? Inform him immediately. He's still in Spain. This will end his vacation rather abruptly. Good, I added, a grim satisfaction rising. He ended Helen's life abruptly. Fair's fair. Angela typed with practice speed, attaching the complete trust documentation. He'll have everything. Asset lists. Beneficiary designation. Legal language explaining his removal. This isn't a threat, Simon. It's done. She reviewed the email, then looked at me. Last chance to change your mind. Send it. Her finger hovered for a moment, then clicked. The sending animation, the progress bar, it felt simultaneously too fast and too slow. Done, she said. He'll have it within minutes. I sat there, watching the afternoon light. A weight lifted, replaced not by peace, that would come much later, if at all, but by certainty. This was the first real move in a game I hadn't chosen to play, but one I would finish on my terms. Thank you, Angela. Just doing my job. She walked me to the door. Simon, Chester's going to react badly. Be prepared. I know. What I didn't say was that I was counting on it. An hour later, back home, the phone started ringing. Chester's name blazed on the screen. I watched it ring, then ring again. 27 calls. I counted every single one. The voicemail started around call 5. His voice, from confusion to disbelief to anger. Dad, I got this weird email. Call me back. Then, what is this? You can't just give everything away. I'm your son. By message 15, you're making a huge mistake. Stephanie's talking to lawyers. You can't just steal my inheritance. I listened to every single one, watching the sunset paint the sky. Each message, another piece of evidence. Another demonstration of who Chester truly was when he didn't get what he wanted. Then came the texts. Stephanie joined in. Shorter. Angrier. You're a cruel old man. That house belongs to Chester. We'll fight this. I set the phone face down. And went to make dinner. Helen came home the next morning. I'd hired Maria, a professional caregiver with a quiet competence that immediately changed the atmosphere of the house. Maria, this is Helen, my wife. I gave her the medication schedule, showed her the charts. She's in good hands, Mr. Watkins, Maria assured me. Helen looked up from the bed, her voice weak but clearer. Is Chester coming by today? The question was a dull ache in my chest. He's been traveling, I said, carefully. He'll visit when he can. Maria, sensing the tension, gave Helen a gentle smile and started discussing her comfort. I left them, returning to my study. The waiting was the hardest part. I knew Chester would come. An emergency flight from Barcelona, an expensive drive down to Sarasota, probably wiping out whatever money he had left. The thought brought me no joy. Only cold resolve. He arrived on the 6th evening. I heard the car door slam, then his key in the lock. He still had access, yes, but no ownership. The irony was a bitter taste. Where are you? His voice, thick with anger, carried through the house. Dad. I stood in the living room, positioned deliberately. My back to the hallway, not the wall. Physical space mattered in confrontations. Barcelona not agree with you, Chester? He appeared in the doorway, 10 hours on a plane etched on his face. Bloodshot eyes. Wrinkled clothes. Hair unwashed. Stephanie, looking uncertain for the first time since I'd met her, hovered behind him. Don't, Chester's voice shook. Don't you dare joke. What did you do? The trust. The foundation. Everything to charity. I made arrangements for my estate. Adults do that. My voice was level, conversational even. It seemed to enrage him more than shouting would have. My estate. That's my inheritance. You can't just give it all away. Actually, I can. I did. This is because of Mom. She's fine. She's home now, right? No thanks to you. You left her to die. I didn't. It was just a few days. I needed a break. That word, break, hit something cold and hard inside me. You needed a break? She needed water. Food. Her medication. Which mattered more, Chester? He lunged forward, hands gesticulating wildly. Dad, I'm sorry. I'll do better. Just change it back. Please, we can fix this. You lost the right to call me Dad when you posted that picture. Pathetic old folks. Remember? Stephanie stepped up, desperate. He didn't mean it like that. I looked at her directly. You told me this house would be yours soon. Did you mean that? She went quiet. Chester's desperation twisted into something harder. I'll sue. I'll contest it. You're old. You were on pain medication after surgery. The trust was created 4 days after my surgery. I was fully lucid. 2 attorneys and a notary will testify to that. There has to be something. Undue influence. Coercion. Try it. I sat down in my chair, making him stand while I remained seated. Another power position. Another subtle message. Spend what little money you have left on lawyers. The law is clear. The property is mine to dispose of as I choose. I'm your son. The words came out like a broken wail. No. You're someone who shares my DNA. A son would have checked on his mother. He lunged forward, finger jabbing toward my chest. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Behind me, I heard Maria's concerned voice from Helen's room. Mr. Watkins, is everything all right? I kept my eyes on Chester. Everything's fine, Maria, I called back. Then, quieter, just for Chester, you should leave now. Before you do something you'll regret even more than Barcelona. I woke early the next morning. Silence. Only Maria's quiet movements in Helen's room. The confrontation with Chester felt like a lifetime ago, though it had been less than 12 hours. Chester and Stephanie were still here. Still asleep. They weren't leaving. This was going to be a siege. The next 2 weeks were a toxic choreography. We avoided each other, yet shared the same air. Passing in hallways without speaking. Hearing muffled frustration from Chester's room, words like undue influence and diminished capacity. One afternoon, I heard a phone hit the wall. Then Chester's raw, useless scream. Stephanie played music loudly. Left dirty dishes in the sink. Trapped mud across Helen's pristine floors. Passive-aggressive warfare. The kind that grinds on you. But my focus was Helen. I spent hours in her room, reading from old architectural journals, the ones she used to tease me about. Still boring after all these years, she'd say. Now, she just lay there, eyes closed, breath shallow. Maria pulled me aside one mid-February morning. Her vitals are stable, Simon, but she's fading. It's not dramatic. Just gradual. I knew. Had known for days. The way her hand squeezed mine had changed. Less strength. More desperation. Like she was trying to hold on to something slipping away. Simon, her voice, barely a whisper one evening. I'm here, I said. Right here. Chester, don't be too hard. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Rest now, Helen. Everything's handled. Her fingers tightened weakly around mine. Love you always. Always. Then, sleep now. And she did. For the next 2 weeks, she slept more than she woke. Ate less. Spoke not at all. Maria updated me daily, but I could see it for myself. Helen was leaving, one breath at a time. March 2nd, early evening. Maria appeared in my study doorway. Simon. I followed her. To Helen's room. The change in breathing. I'd heard about it, but experiencing it was different. Shallow. Irregular. Like her body had forgotten the rhythm. I sat beside her. Took her hand. Talked quietly about our life. The house I designed for her. The way she always knew when I needed coffee. 42 years of small moments that built something larger than either of us alone. She didn't respond, didn't open her eyes, but her hand stayed in mine. Then, without drama, without a gasp, the breathing stopped. Just gradual stillness. Then silence. Maria checked her pulse. Looked at me. Shook her head gently. I sat there for an hour, still holding Helen's hand. Then I called the funeral home. Chester and Stephanie were somewhere in the house. I'd heard the television earlier. I didn't tell them. Not yet. Not until I'd made the arrangements. Chosen the casket. Handled the details with the calm precision Helen would have expected. The funeral was 4 days later. A small service. 10 people. Elderly neighbors, Helen's former coworkers, Maria. I delivered a brief eulogy about Helen's strength and grace. I kept it together. Falling apart wouldn't honor her. Chester arrived late. Stumbling through the door, Stephanie trying to support him. The smell hit me first. Cologne, failing to mask alcohol. He pushed past me, grabbed the podium for balance, knocking over a flower arrangement. She was my mother. Best woman. His voice broke. I loved her. I approached quietly, my hand on his elbow. Chester, this isn't the time. Please go. He jerked away. You don't tell me. She's my mother. And you left her to die. Everyone here knows it. Leave with some dignity. You turned her against me. You poisoned. I'm asking once more. Leave now. Mr. Patterson and another neighbor were already moving forward. Come on, son. Let's get you some air. Chester let them lead him out, still protesting, still wailing. Stephanie followed, not looking at anyone. The service continued. We buried Helen under oak trees she'd admired. I placed a single rose on her casket before they lowered it. The week after felt longer than the 2 weeks before. Chester and Stephanie avoided me more, if that was possible. I processed my grief privately. Sitting in Helen's empty room. Going through photos with methodical care. Young versions of us stared back. Full of hope. Full of naive certainty. I placed the photos in a box, closed it, filed it away. Then I went to my desk, pulled out Angela Ray's business card. And picked up the phone. Angela answered on the second ring. Simon, I'm so sorry about Helen. I saw the obituary. Thank you. I appreciate that. I paused, glancing at the guest room door down the hall. I need your help with something else now. Chester and Stephanie are still living in my house. They won't leave. How long has it been? She asked, the rustle of papers audible on her end. 3 weeks since the confrontation. A week since Helen's funeral. Okay. Florida law is clear. We serve them formal notice, 15 days to vacate. If they refuse, we file eviction proceedings. How long until they're physically out of my house? Realistically? If they don't leave after a court order, sheriff's removal takes a few days. 6 weeks total from today. 6 weeks. 6 more weeks of footsteps overhead. Of hostile silences. Of Stephanie's music and Chester's late-night drinking. Then we do it right, I said. Start the paperwork. The notice went out March 11th, certified mail. Milton Willis, our old real estate lawyer, handled the sending. Everything documented, trackable. Official. Chester signed for it on the 12th. I knew because I had the tracking number. Delivered. Signature required. Received. I heard him crumple the notice, throw it across the kitchen. Evict me? Your own flesh and blood? I didn't look up from my newspaper. My flesh and blood left his mother to die. The courts don't care about DNA. Where am I supposed to go? We have no money. You had money for Barcelona. Figure it out. Stephanie tried diplomacy for the first time. Simon, please. We can pay rent. We'll contribute. No. This isn't negotiable. You have until the 26th, I marked the calendar in my study. Each day, a small X. March 14th, 15th, 16th. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Waiting. They didn't leave. March 26th came and went. I took photos through my study window. Chester's car in the driveway. Lights on in the guest room. More documentation. Mrs. Patterson even signed a statement confirming their continued presence. I called Angela the next morning. They're still here. You want to proceed with the lawsuit immediately? I've documented everything. Okay. I'll file tomorrow morning. You'll need to be present for the hearing. I wouldn't miss it. The lawsuit was filed March 27th. The hearing. Pretending to read. Your mother asked me not to be too hard on you, Chester. But she also asked you not to leave her alone. We both broke promises. He retreated to the guest room. I heard raised voices. Stephanie's frustrated tone. Chester's defensive responses. April 5th, Angela called. You got countersued. Chester's claiming you were mentally incompetent when you created the trust. I'd been expecting it. Desperation makes people predictable. I was 4 days post-surgery. Knee replacement. Local anesthetic. Some mild pain medication. Were you impaired during our meeting, Angela? Simon, you were sharper than most clients. We have witnesses, me, Milton, my paralegal. Plus, video timestamp from office security showing you lucid and deliberate. Her voice was firm. So, he can't win. He can try. But this is desperation, not a legitimate legal strategy. It'll fail. The question is whether you want to countersue for frivolous litigation. I considered it. More legal fees for Chester. More pressure. More consequences. Let's see how the eviction hearing goes first. Fair enough. Start gathering every piece of documentation you have, she instructed. Medical records, pharmacy receipts, anything proving you were clear-headed after surgery. Already done. I had boxes organized by date in my study. Every prescription. Every follow-up. Every lucid conversation documented in Maria's care notes. Of course you do, Angela actually laughed. Simon, we're going to bury this claim, and then we're going to bury him in that eviction hearing. I smiled for the first time in weeks. That's the plan. The week before the hearing, I stood in my closet, selecting a navy blue suit. Conservative. Respectful. Not for Chester, but for the judge. On my desk sat 3 binders, witness statements, medical records, timeline documents. Angela called my preparation overkill. I called it architecture. Every detail mattered when building a case. April 15th arrived, bright with Florida sunshine and a clarity that made everything sharp-edged. The Sarasota County Courthouse smelled of floor polish and anxiety. Angela and I arrived early. Chester and Stephanie showed up late, trailing a young attorney who looked fresh from law school. Judge Martinez was efficient. The kind of judge who'd heard every excuse twice. She read through the filings quickly. Mr. Watkins, you're evicting your son from your home. Can you explain why? I kept my voice level. Your Honor, Chester Watkins abandoned his bedridden mother for a vacation overseas. She nearly died from neglect. He's not my son in any meaningful sense anymore. Chester's attorney shot to his feet. Objection. Irrelevant to the eviction proceeding. Overruled. Judge Martinez didn't even look up. It establishes why there's no informal family arrangement. Mr. Watkins has legal right to his property. Angela presented our case like she was building a wall, brick by brick, certified mail receipts, timeline documentation, no lease agreement, no rent payment history. Chester's attorney tried the hardship angle. Nowhere to go. Family dispute, not legal matter. It fell flat against the evidence. The ruling took less than 20 minutes. Chester Watkins must vacate the property by May 15th, 30 days from today. Chester shot to his feet. This is my home. Judge Martinez's eyes went cold. Sir, one more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. This is my courtroom. He sat down. I remained silent, letting the law speak for itself. The competency hearing came a week later, April 22nd. Same courthouse, different room. Bigger. More formal. Higher stakes. Chester's attorney presented their case first. My age, 68. The surgery timing, for days post-op, pain medication records. Then Angela began dismantling it. Medical records showed only mild, over-the-counter pain relievers. The surgeon's affidavit, minor procedure, local anesthetic, no expected cognitive impairment. Security footage from Angela's office, time-stamped, showing me articulate, purposeful, asking detailed questions. Milton Willis took the stand. Absolutely, Mr. Watkins was competent. Textbook competency. Angela testified last, walking the judge through every interaction we'd had. My specific instructions. The legal concepts I grasped. Judge Thompson, older, more formal than Martinez, reviewed everything. Then, his ruling. This court finds no credible evidence of diminished capacity. The medical testimony is clear. Minor procedure, minimal medication, no cognitive impact. The video evidence shows Mr. Watkins, articulate and purposeful. Claim dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Chester Watkins is barred from refiling this claim. Chester's head dropped into his hands. I heard a sound, something between a sob and a gasp. Stephanie put her hand on his shoulder. I stood, collected my binder, and walked out without looking back. Early May brought their final desperate move. I'd installed security cameras after Chester moved back in, basic doorbell models, but they covered the driveway and mailbox. May 1st, after grocery shopping, Mrs. Patterson flagged me down. Simon, I saw Stephanie at your mailbox. Looked like she was going through your mail. I thanked her, went inside, and pulled up the security footage. There it was. Stephanie, watching my car leave, then walking straight to the mailbox. Sorting through envelopes. Looking over her shoulder. Repeatedly. May 3rd, I called the police non-emergency line. 2 officers arrived. I showed them the footage, explained the situation. They interviewed Stephanie while Chester was out, supposedly at a job interview. Ma'am, why were you going through this mailbox? Stephanie's voice wavered. I was checking if my mail had arrived. I'm staying here temporarily. Do you have legal residence here? Chester lives here. I'm with Chester. Mr. Watkins says Chester is being evicted. You're not supposed to touch this mail. Clear? Yes, clear. The officers wrote a report, federal mail interference. Not enough for criminal charges, but enough for an official record. They warned her never to touch the mailbox again. I filed the report in my binder. More documentation. The days crawled toward May 15th. The house atmosphere had moved beyond toxic. Into defeated acceptance. Chester mostly stayed in the guest room, barely speaking. Stephanie, methodically, packed. Reality was settling in. May 10th. A small moving truck appeared in the driveway. I watched from my study window as they loaded boxes. Chester's furniture. Now, I suppose, whatever he'd bought over the years. They were careful not to take anything that had been Helen's. The day after Chester moved out, I sat in my study with a private investigator's report. I'd commissioned it back in April, during the court battles. $800, money well spent. Information Chester never knew I was gathering. The report was thorough. Chester and Stephanie's new address, a 1-bedroom apartment in Northport, 30 miles south. Cheap area. $1,100 a month. Stephanie's new job, retail at a department store, $13 an hour. Chester's employment status, unemployed. Job hunting. But there was more. The house I'd given Chester 5 years ago, the one he'd lost to a property owner named Herman Olson in a poker game. The PI had tracked that down, too. Herman Olson, 53, professional gambler. 6 rental properties across Bradenton. I'd spent the week planning. May 20th, I drove north to Bradenton. Herman's house was nice. 2-story Mediterranean style. Well-maintained yard. Expensive cars. The kind of home that came from successful business, legal or not. He answered the door himself. Big man. Solid. A handshake that meant something. Mr. Olson, I'm Simon Watkins. I believe you won a house for my son in a poker game. He studied me, then nodded. Come in. His living room was comfortable, professional. I noticed the poker table through an archway. Green felt. Good lighting. This was where Chester had bet everything on nothing. Your son's a terrible poker player, Herman said, pouring coffee I hadn't asked for. Worst I've seen. He's terrible at a lot of things. Poker's just one of them. I met his slight smile. I'm guessing you're not here for sympathy. No. I'm here to buy the house back. It's not for sale. Good property. Decent rental income. I pulled the deed from my briefcase. When I gave that house to Chester 5 years ago, there was a deed restriction. No transfers for 10 years without my consent. Herman's expression shifted. I didn't see any restriction. My attorney checked. Check again. Section 4, Clause B. It's recorded with Manatee County Public Records since 2020. He took the document, read carefully. His jaw tightened. You're saying the transfer isn't valid? I'm saying you're holding property you don't legally own. Which makes this conversation very important for you. A silent stretch. I watched him calculate, the way good poker players do. If what you're saying is true, why offer to buy it? Just take it back through court. I could. But litigation takes time. Costs money. I'm offering you a clean exit. $320,000. You walk away whole. I paid more than that. Chester's debt was $360,000. Chester's debt isn't my problem. Current market value is $340,000. I'm offering $320,000. That's $20,000 under value. Take it, or risk losing everything in court. He leaned back, studying me with new respect. You've got steel, old man. A beat. All right. $320,000. 2-week closing. I'll have my attorney draw up the papers. We shook hands again. This time it felt different. Two men who understood the game. He said this house was his future, Herman remarked as he walked me to the door. Bet it all on a pair of eights. Sounds like Chester. Betting everything on nothing. You're cleaning up his mess. That's rough. I'm done cleaning up after him. This is the last one. I drove back to Sarasota, windows down. Warm May air filled the car. Herman would contact Angela. In 2 weeks, I'd own both houses. The one I'd built. And the one I'd foolishly given away. Chester was in Northport, probably working retail, living in a one-bedroom with a girlfriend already looking for the exits. The PI report had even included that detail, Stephanie on her phone, voice raised, I can't do this forever. Chester had no idea what I'd just done. No idea I'd recovered what he'd lost. And he wouldn't know. Not until I decided to tell him. If I decided to tell him at all. That uncertainty. That was its own kind of justice. The closing attorney's office in Bradenton was all polished wood and serious transactions. May 31st, Herman Olson sat across from me, flanked by attorneys. Documents slid across the mahogany table. Deed transfer. Wire confirmation. Keys on a small ring. $320,000 changed hands electronically. Numbers on a screen. Wealth redistributed with keystrokes. Herman signed the final page, pushed it toward the notary, then looked at me with something that might have been respect. You know, I actually feel bad for your son losing this place the way he did. Don't, I said, he didn't lose it. He threw it away. There's a difference. Fair enough. Herman stood, offered his hand. You play this smart. Clean. Wish more people handled things like this. I shook his hand firmly. I'm not handling things. I'm correcting mistakes. His and mine. The mistake of giving him too much. The mistake of thinking he'd earned it. I drove back to Sarasota with 2 sets of keys. 2 property deeds. At home, I placed both deeds in my safe, side by side. One house I'd built with my own hands. One house I'd given away foolishly and now recovered. Combined value, over $1 million. Chester had no idea. And his ignorance? That was about to become very useful. June 5th. I met with Angela again. One more legal action, I told her. A final psychological strike. She pulled up Florida statutes on her computer. Tell me what you're thinking. Filial responsibility. Statute 742.031. Adult children financially responsible for parents' medical care under certain circumstances. Angela leaned back, studying me. Simon, this claim is weak. Florida filial responsibility is rarely enforced. Judges don't like it. You paid for Helen's care voluntarily. Hard to prove necessity under the statute. You likely can't win this. I don't need to win, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. I need him to think he could lose. Understanding crossed her face. You're weaponizing the legal system for psychological warfare. I'm using every tool available. Just like Chester used my trust when he abandoned his mother. She drafted the letter over the next hour. $47,000 in medical costs. Nurse Maria's wages. Medications. Equipment. Doctor visits. Every receipt I'd saved, every invoice, itemized in stark legal language. Failure to respond within 30 days will result in filing lawsuit in Sarasota County Court. I reviewed the draft 3 times, making edits to strengthen the threatening tone. I watched Angela seal the envelope. Affixed the certified mail label. The letter arrived at Chester's Northport apartment on June 6th. I didn't need to be there to know what happened next. Mrs. Patterson's nephew, his landlord, reported the highlights. Chester received the certified letter, had to sign for it, opened it with Stephanie present. The first paragraph, I'd repossessed the house he'd lost to Herman Olson. The second, a demand for $47,000 for Helen's medical care under the filial responsibility statute. According to the landlord, Chester made frantic phone calls. Legal aid. Hotlines. Free consultation services. The responses were variations of the same theme: the statute exists. Application is complicated. Depends on circumstances. You need representation. Representation he couldn't afford. Which meant he couldn't afford to ignore the claim. Stephanie's reported response: I can't do this anymore. This is your family. Your mess. June 10th, late afternoon. I was in my study when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Chester. Thinner. Disheveled. Exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. I opened the door. He stood there, hands fidgeting, shoulders hunched. Dad, please, can we talk? Please. I stepped aside, let him enter. We stood in the living room. I didn't offer him a seat. Dad, I know I messed up badly, but I'm trying. I'm working. You're working because you have no choice, Chester. Not because you've changed. That's not fair. You don't know. I know exactly who you are. You showed me in Barcelona. You showed me every day your mother needed you, and you weren't there. His voice cracked. She forgave me before she died. She said, she asked you not to be too hard on me. I'm not being hard. I'm being just. What do you want from me? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'll work forever to pay you back. I let the silence stretch, watched him squirm. Then I spoke with a finality that closes doors permanently. When you left your mother dying to take a vacation, you made your choice. I've made mine. The house you lost? I own it now. The debt? I'm claiming that's your burden to carry. Even if it's only in your mind. So this is it. You're just done with me. I was done with you the moment I saw that post from Barcelona. This is just paperwork. You're my father, and Helen was your mother. You remember what you did to her? Live with that. I have to. I walked to the door. Opened it. Chester stood there another moment, then left. I watched him drive away in a car that probably should have been in a junkyard years ago. The following week, news came through Mrs. Patterson's nephew. Stephanie moved out June 12th. Chester was alone now, barely making rent. He'd found work, Amazon delivery driver. $16 an hour. I sat at my desk, drafted an email to Angela, withdraw the filial responsibility claim. I'd never intended to follow through. The weapon was the threat itself, not the action. Chester would spend months, maybe years, waiting for a lawsuit that would never come. That uncertainty. That fear. That was the point. Early July, I listed both properties for sale. The house I built, the one Helen and I had called home for decades, sold in 11 days for $675,000. The house I'd foolishly given Chester, then recovered, took 3 weeks, selling for $335,000. Over $1 million in transactions, handled with the same precision I'd brought to architectural projects my whole life. I bought a modest condo in a senior community overlooking Sarasota Bay. 2 bedrooms, clean lines. More space than I needed, costing $245,000. It left me with $765,000 from the property sales. Combined with my existing savings, I had $1.285 million. Almost exactly what the estate had been worth before I transferred it to the MS Foundation. Angela helped me establish the Helen Watkins Memorial Foundation. A proper 501c3. Board of Directors. A clear mission statement, providing in-home nursing assistance for families dealing with MS. 6 weeks later, by mid-August, everything was official. August 15th. We held a small ceremony in a downtown conference room. 40 people, neighbors, Helen's former co-workers, Maria, representatives from local MS support groups. Even a reporter from the Sarasota Herald-Tribune. I gave a brief speech about Helen's strength, her grace, her belief that people should help each other. I announced the foundation would distribute grants immediately, $15,000 each, for qualifying families needing in-home nursing support. The first grants went out that week. 3 families. $45,000. Enabling care that made the difference between managing at home and institutional placement. Mrs. Patterson posted photos from the ceremony on Facebook. Tagged me. Tagged the foundation. Added details about Helen's story, the devoted wife, the difficult illness, the husband who honored her memory by helping others. Chester saw it. According to his landlord, he saw the ceremony photos. The grant announcements. The foundation bearing his mother's name, funded by the estate he'd expected to inherit. He didn't call. Didn't show up. He just saw it on a screen. Absorbed the final accounting of what his choices had cost him. August 1st, Stephanie filed for divorce in Florida. No fault. No assets to divide. A quick dissolution. 2 weeks later, it was final. Chester signed the papers without contest. He had nothing left to fight for. Nothing left to fight with. I spent my days at the condo, volunteering with the foundation's administrative work. Grant applications. Family interviews. Coordination with nursing agencies. It turned out the skills I'd developed managing architectural projects translated perfectly to managing charitable operations. Late August evening, I sat on my condo balcony, watching the sun set over Sarasota Bay. My coffee cooled in the cup. My small herb garden thrived in pots along the railing. Simple pleasures. Sufficient pleasures. Helen's photo sat on the side table, our wedding day, young and hopeful. I looked at it, then at the bay, the expanse of water reflecting orange and gold. The foundation would continue after I was gone. Board members committed. Funding secure. Mission clear. Helen's name would help families for decades. That mattered more than any revenge. Chester was in Northport. Working a delivery route. Living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. He'd lost his inheritance. His house. His wife. His father. He'd gained exactly what his choices had earned him: isolation. Consequence. I'd achieved what I'd set out to achieve. Justice, yes, but not vengeance. Punishment proportional to harm. Helen honored, not through bitterness, but through purpose. The sun touched the horizon, light spreading across the water in patterns that seemed deliberate, but were just physics and circumstance. Like justice, perhaps. Natural law playing out over time. I wasn't happy. Helen was still gone. That wound would never fully heal. But I was at peace. The books balanced. The architecture of consequence properly constructed. Chester living with his choices. Helen's memory living in meaningful action. I finished my coffee, stood, brought the cup inside. Tomorrow, I'd review more grant applications. Next week, I'd visit families who'd received assistance. I would build something positive from the wreckage Chester had created. The difference between us, I realized over these months, wasn't intelligence or opportunity. It was understanding that actions have weight. That choices echo forward. That family means more than blood. It means showing up when someone needs you, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Chester never learned that. Maybe he never could. I'd stopped trying to teach him. Now, I just lived the lesson myself. Helping families who understood what he never would, that caring for someone isn't a burden. It's a privilege. And when you fail at it, you lose more than money or property. You lose the right to call yourself family. The bay darkened. Night settled in. I stood at my window, looking out at the water and sky, at the lights of a city where I'd spent my life building things. Buildings. Relationships. A reputation. And now, a foundation that would outlive me. Chester was out there somewhere in the darkness, delivering packages to strangers' doors, counting pennies, sleeping in a cheap apartment with walls thin enough to hear neighbors' lives continuing around him. Alone with his choices. I turned from the window, closed the blinds, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring more grant applications. More families needing help. More opportunities to transform hell and suffering into someone else's relief. That transformation, tragedy into purpose, pain into help, that was the architecture I'd been building all along. And unlike Chester, I'd built it to last. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever faced such a profound betrayal, or had to fight for what's right against your own family? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Rephrase.